Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a glass coaster. Now, this was supposed to be done to look like a dogwood flower, so that was what I researched. Now, I'm going to also show you on the detailed description some of the materials I used in case you're having problems finding them. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap a metal hoop with foil, and I'm going to sketch out my project so I know what I'm going to be working on. So this is my sketch. So I did some research and I sketched out what I wanted, and I got a 4-inch metal hoop and I wrapped it with foil. Now I'm going to cut out the glass. I cut that pattern that I drew on sticky paper, and then I cut the pattern out and stuck it on my glass. And you always stick it on the smooth side of the glass if you're going to cut it, whether you're going to draw on your glass or whatever you're going to use to get your pattern. You always want to do that on the smooth side because that'll make it easier to cut it out. So I'm going to end up grinding this so it's perfect. So I'm not expecting it to be perfect when I cut it out. So I'm using some pliers and nipping off some of the excess glass. Now I'm going to use a grinder, and I'm going to be grinding off the excess. So first of all, I turned on my grinder, and with steel wool I smoothed out the little shaft that you put your grinding wheel on, and then I put some Vaseline on it, and then I'm just putting a new well, it's not new, but a small 1/8 inch grinding bit thing on it to use for these small, delicate areas I need to grind. Now I have my sponge behind it that I got it all wet. Now what I'm doing is I'm grinding off the little um, areas that I didn't get perfect when I cut it. And the reason I'm using is the small grinding bit is I'm going to use the wheel to actually make that dip, especially in the front of the flower itself, because it's really kind of hard to cut that with a knife. I mean, with a glass cutter. So this part right here is where I'm really utilizing that round, small grinding bit. See, I'm going to be able to actually go into that little dip right there and make a very smooth um, cut that I wouldn't be able to do just with my glass cutter very easily. But with a grinder, you can really get that look of a really smooth little dip there very, very quickly. So you can turn your project over so you can see the other side, make sure that everything looks like it's all nice and smooth. So this way of doing my pattern is kind of a free-flowing, in that I didn't draw out the whole flower and as a pattern. I didn't make each piece as a perfect pattern. What I'm doing is pretty much one area at a time, and then putting it together to make my finished look. So this isn't kind of the traditional way people do stained glass. It's more just kind of organically putting it together as it goes. So this is another petal that I'm making. Now I'm going to clean off all of these petals, and then I'm going to foil them. Now you really need to get all the sticky residue off. So if you're going to use that sticky paper, um, it's kind of a drag to get the sticky goo off. You might even have to use some goo off product, but it really gives you a real exact line that doesn't disappear when you're doing your cutting. So that's just one way that I use to get the pattern onto my glass. The other way I use is with a marker, and I'll show you that in a few minutes. Now I'm using 7/32 inch foil. It's black backed. You don't have to. This is pretty opaque glass, and I'm not actually, as a coaster, light is not going to go through this. So I could have used any color really as a foil, but I just happen to have this black back that I use most of the time. And so I evenly space it on both sides. So I really center the foil and then just kind of press it all the way around. Um, this is the same foil that I used when I wrapped around that hoop to begin with. And then I took my hoop that I had already foiled and wrapped it with some 18 gauge copper wire. So that's how it got that nice little loopy um, look that was in the first picture that I showed. So now I'm using a plastic probe. You can use anything. I like to use something plastic so it has some give to it. And I burnish down the foil, so I really press it down smooth. Now I'm going to put my 4 petals together, and I'm going to do the preliminary soldering. So I have a drawing of just the circle, and so I know about what I want them to look like. I'm using a gel flux. That's the kind of flux that I really like because it doesn't really run, but it's really easy to apply. You can apply it with just one of those paintbrushes that are for chemicals, and it's really quite easy. So now I'm just soldering, little tack soldering my little flowers together. So I have all the petals set where I want them to be. I have a piece of clear silicone on my work table there, which is really nice because then I can use pieces of paper with my designs underneath the clear silicone, and I can still see that pattern when I need to. I'm not really utilizing that method right now, but that's why you see those lines underneath it. So I'm just going in and making sure that this is tack soldered on nicely. Now I'm going to add some yellow glass to the center. So I have these irregular shaped yellow glass that I have foiled. There's a whole like little cup that I foiled, and I'm trying to figure out which ones I should use. Because it's a coaster, I don't want the center to be standing up higher than the glass around it. So I want them to be kind of shallow pieces, and I wanted to fit a few of them in the center because this flower has nice yellow stamens in the center. So I'm just figuring out which ones to use. So I took these yellow stones or glass that I had, and I put foil all the way around them. I used a very thin foil. So I used like 3mm foil. I would cut 3mm foil in half at least to get the diameter that I would want to cover. I don't want the foil to wrap around these little teeny yellow stones a lot, because then you're going to end up obliterating most of the look. You're not going to be able to see very much stone. Now I'm putting my hoop around it so I can figure out, what size do I need for the green part? Now I'm going to cut the green glass. Now for this part of it, I took a piece of green glass and cut the diameter. So the outside, I have this tool that I use to cut a nice circle. And so when I got the nice circle, I'm now with a marker going around so I know what I want it to end up with. So I want the outside for this project. I don't want that middle flowery shape. So if I wanted to do the flowery shape, I'd have to cut a little bit differently. So right now I'm cutting my pieces of glass, and I'm not really worrying too much about what pieces. I know that it's not going to be one piece. I know that I'm going to end up with some, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 pieces wrapping around this thing. So I'm not overly worried about where it cracks. One thing I did learn after when I tried to put this together later on, was I really should have numbered every petal and every area of this, because it was kind of hard to figure out where these petals should go, as you'll see in a few minutes. So now I just cut off some of it, and I have some little green parts to put outside my petals. So now I need to grind those down so they're nice and smooth, and I need to clean them and foil them and see how they fit within the scope of my project. So I have lots of pieces, and now I'm finishing foiling them, and I'm putting them in place. And this is where it got a little bit trickier than I wanted it to, was to try to figure out where they came from, which is where I said that I probably should have marked them all, because I don't know where they went. But I'm not going to let that bother me. Next time I would label them. So I'm going to be adding a bunch of different pieces, and then I'll just fill in, even if I have to make new pieces for the missing sections. Now I do expect to have some solder filling gaps in between them. That's part of the thought of this project, so I'm not going to worry if they don't fit perfectly. So I'm doing a nice burnishing, foiling method of squishing this down, and then trying to figure out where I want to put it. And yeah, I just kept changing my mind at times. The thickness of the marker when I drew around this did take up some of the space, so it's not going to be absolutely perfect. If you use a thinner tipped marker, then it's a little bit better, because then you get a closer look. A closer cut. So I've decided that some of these are fine, so I'm going to tack them in place, and then I'm going to draw some more. So this green area on the outside is supposed to kind of represent the leaves. That's my thought in this project. So that's why I don't mind there being spaces in between them, and I don't mind them being different sizes, because I wanted that look of, I didn't want just a solid outline. I wanted to have different pieces. So I'm going to fill in some of the gaps, and I know that the outside hoop that has the wires wrapped around it, that's going to all be soldered. And the reason I did those wires wrapped around was just so it had some decoration. It wasn't just a flat circle on the outside. So yeah, I'm filling in some more areas. And yeah, after you get it tacked together, you can kind of float your solder over the seams, which will make the seams a smoother look. Now, if I have pieces that fit perfectly, great. If not, I will just take a piece that I already have the outside circle, as I said, cut, and I'll just take one of those pieces and then draw out what I need for the remaining spaces. So now I filled in those remaining spaces with other pieces of glass. That's why it was nice to cut that circle first, because that gave a nice smooth edge that I could then work off of instead of just having, all of the edges to have to draw around. Now I am using my flux and my solder to cover both sides of the project. So I'm doing the back also because it's very important that the back is soldered and strong also. Now I'm going around the top again in case there was some areas that need to be smoothed out or areas that look weird that heated up when I was doing the back side. Then you just clean your project and enjoy it. You can patina it if you want to, but for this project, I just left it silver. So this is what my dogwood coaster ended up looking like when it was done. And it was a lot of fun. I put like little plastic those circle cushions on the back to hold it off the ground a little bit, off the table for when you use it as a coaster. Thank you for watching and have fun creating stuff. Bye for now.